Let's talk about the Krebs cycle. Let's just do a brief explanation. Now, the Krebs cycle, in and of itself, we know that this is a part of respiration. We know that glycolysis will come first, right? So, glycolysis will come first, then the second part of the cycle is Krebs, right? So, we have to know that. Now, we know that after glycolysis, we get pyruvate, right? And in the presence of oxygen, so oxygen really has to be there, kinda, for the Krebs cycle to take place. Now, you gotta note, technically, the Krebs cycle is an anaerobic process, but most times it doesn't really occur without oxygen, and that is because of what's going to happen in our electron transport chain in our third step, right? But there is a mini step between glycolysis and the Krebs cycle, and we're going to look at that first. So firstly, we're going to have our pyruvate. Freshly prepared from glycolysis. Now, our pyruvate has to be transformed into what we call acetyl-CoA. So acetyl-CoA. So it's actually a coenzyme. Right? Acetyl-CoA. Right? Now, this actually produces, rather, NADP. So we're going to have NAD right here with its positive charge here, and it's going to produce NADPH. Alright, so that's really the first thing there. This is going to release a carbon dioxide molecule as it's a decarboxylation reaction, and coenzyme CoA is going to be introduced into the reaction. So this is what we normally call the link reaction. So it links what's happening in glycolysis, right, to what's happening in the Krebs cycle. Now, it's also important to remember that these are happening at different places in the cell, right? So glycolysis happens in the cytosol, right? So glycolysis will happen in the cytosol. So if here is a cytosol, right, we have glycolysis happening up here. Right? And it produces pyruvate, right? And this happens within the mitochondria. Right? So all of this happens in the mitochondria. The link reaction, right? And the eventual Krebs cycle. Now this acetyl-CoA is going to be introduced into the Krebs cycle, right? After using pyruvate dehydrogenase, right, to really produce what we have here, the acetyl-CoA. Right, now that acetyl coenzyme A, it actually come into contact with something called oxaloacetate. Now, in some cases, you're gonna see the acids, for example, oxaloacetic acid, right, or succinic acid. But in other cases, you'll find the salts, oxaloacetate and succinate. I do recommend that if you start with the acids, continue with the names of the acids. And if you start with the salts, just continue with the name of the salts. Right? So we're gonna have acetyl-CoA. CoA, right? And this is gonna combine with oxaloacetic acid, right? So keeping that in mind, well, oxaloacetic acid. I'm just gonna use the salts though for this oxaloacetate, right? So it combines with oxaloacetate, and this would give us citrate, also known as citric acid, right? That's why it's sometimes known as the citric acid cycle. All right, from citrate, we're gonna have a water molecule being lost, and this produces cis, so it's an isomer, aconitate. Now I'm adding this, but technically for Cape Biology Unit 2, we don't necessarily use cis-aconitate, right? From cis-aconitate, we're gonna have another water, we're gonna have a water molecule being introduced. My bad. Right? And this will give us isocitrate. I know that some persons within biology unit 2 uses isocitrate, right? So we're gonna have isocitrate. Now, from isocitrate, now we're gonna have the production of NADH, right? We're gonna have the production of NADH here, and we're gonna also have the production of a carbon dioxide molecule. Now, as we go along, please keep count of the molecules being produced. And in here, we're gonna get alpha ketoglutarate. Alpha ketoglutarate. Right? So we have that here. From alpha ketoglutarate, we're gonna have another reaction happening. It's looking a little bit like a cycle. Let me make the lines a bit shorter. Alright, so we're gonna have something else being created. So we're gonna have another NADPH being produced. NAD. Let me fix that. So NAD plus, and that creates NADP. Well, NADH. My bad. Saying NADP like it's photosynthesis. Alright. So we should have that being created. NADH, not NADPH. My bad. So that's one thing that you really need to take, pay key attention to, right? That NADP is not present within respiration. It is NADH. So be careful not to mess them up. We also have the evolution of CO2, another CO2 molecule here, and this is where we're going to produce our succinyl-CoA. right? This molecule of succinyl CoA, right? And then we're gonna create now GTP. For Kate biology students, all you really want to know right now is that GTP is a type of molecule that is really similar to ATP. So most persons tend to just like call it ATP, right? But it is a different molecule, so I have to put that there, right? From this creates now what we call succinate, right? Succinate. From succinate now we have the creation of a key electron carrier within this cycle, right? And that key electron carrier will be FADH. So FAD creates FADH, right? So we have that, well, FADH2. So I want to see if anybody could tell us what FAD and NAD and FADH and NADH is called in the chat. Well, in the comment section. All right. So we're gonna have succinate being produced, right? Then it produces FADH2, and it gives us our molecule of fumarate. All right. So it gives us fumarate. And we're gonna have implementation of some water here, H2O, right? And we're gonna create what we call malate, right? Malate. And from malate now, right, we're gonna create another molecule of NADH. Right? So this is really the entire cycle. For oxaloacetate, it's really oxaloacetate, right? And yeah, so oxaloacetate is gonna be combining with acetic acid, right, within the presence of some water, right, to now create citrate. So this is my brief explanation of the Krebs cycle. Now let me just highlight key molecules that are produced. So we see NADH here, NADH here, NADH here. We also have our FADH being produced here, right? Then we have this precursor molecule to ATP that some persons tend to just crop up and just say ATP, right? But it's really GTP, but persons say ATP, right? We do have stuff like carbon dioxide being produced, right? And some amount of water being produced as well, right? So yeah, that is that. Remember that the Krebs cycle has to start with a link reaction, pyruvate, right, being converted into acetyl-CoA. And up here we do have the creation of NADH. I actually put P up here, so it should be NADH by itself, right? NADH. Right, so that is it. Brief explanation of the Krebs cycle. So as I said, If you have the chemical names of FADH and NADH, you could please drop it in the comment section. And if there's anything you'd like to add or any questions you have, you can ask them in the comment section and I'll see what best I can help. Alright, so that's it.